So just to start off this video, immediately I want to say that this is not a comment on veganism, and if you are a vegan, this is not coming to attack your ideology. This is simply a video about how veganism is being used in marketing in the garment industry to sell products that aren't necessarily as sustainable as you would assume from the veganism label. So again, this is about systems and not individual people, nor is it really a comment on the ideology of veganism as a whole. If you're vegan, that's great. Love that for you. Keep on, keep it on. We're just going to add a little bit of nuance to the term in order for anybody who is watching this video to make more informed choices about their garment consumption. So with that disclaimer out of the way, hello all, my name is Margaret. I'm a historical costumer and textile conservator in training, and I have a new pet peeve, and that is the term vegan leather. I don't like it, and I don't like how it moralizes a product that is essentially plastic.
So I didn't really have a great spot to put it in the video, so we're just going to put this right up front. These are some other terms that vegan leather has been or is being called. This includes alternative leather, ethical leather, faux leather, plant-based leather, which can include some or mostly plastic. It just has to include some plant-based material. Pleather, and of course PU or PVC leather. Those two are going to be used exclusively when it is polyurethane or PVC, which is 100% plastic. So moving on, just remember those terms, and remember those terms when you are shopping around as well. Now, back to the regularly scheduled content.
100% going to get into all of that, but first I really need to define some terms in order for us all to be on the same page for this video. So one, what is veganism? Veganism is an ideology and an ethical standard that basically states that you are not going to harm animals in any way, and that means not using any animal products. Normally it's associated with food, so of course not eating animals like meat, but also not eating any animal products like eggs or honey, etc. Environmentalism is essentially a concern or actions taken to better our environment. Sustainability is the practice of essentially making human life sustainable for the environment. And greenwashing is a marketing tactic in which companies will make a product look greener or more environmental than it actually is. So those are the four terms you got to keep in mind for this video, and one of the main concepts for this video is uncoupling veganism from environmentalism. Not everything that is vegan is environmentally friendly or sustainable, and not everything that is environmentally friendly or sustainable is necessarily vegan. These two ideologies are often mashed together when it comes to the food industry, because there is a scientific link between your meat consumption and the amount of energy it takes to produce that. However, this sort of coupling, this link between environmental and veganism is being used in the garment industry to sell more products. This, I think, is typified in the idea of quote-unquote vegan leather. Vegan leather is essentially a non-animal-based leather-like material. Leather is, of course, made from animal hide, the majority of which are cow, but also some pigs and goats are used in our modern industry. So what materially is vegan leather? Spoiler alert, most of the time it's plastic, but we are going to go into exactly what types of plastic and also some interesting plant-based alternatives. So the first thing we're going to talk about is this new fangled mushroom leather, and this is actually really exciting. Mushroom leather is a product that is 100% plant-based and essentially uses fungi to grow the sort of leather-like substrate. You know, you've felt a mushroom before. It's kind of leathery. It uses that fungi to grow a matrix that is leather-like that can have products made out of it. This product is super, super cool, and I'm totally on board with sort of developing it further, but that's the key, developing it further. It's not at a stage where it is a large portion of the market of these quote-unquote vegan leathers. If you're buying mushroom leather, you're going to know that you're buying mushroom leather. It's going to be a very big selling point of the product, but not a lot of brands are using it because it's still very expensive. It's not cost efficient to use it at all. So hopefully it can be a larger portion of the market share for a better leather alternative, but I'm also not entirely certain what its properties are. I've never worked with mushroom leather, so it could have properties that aren't necessarily quite there yet, and I don't know if they use any petroleum-based coatings in the manufacture of it either.
It has come to my attention while editing this video and doing some further research that there are different types of mushroom leathers. There are several different companies making it, and some of them are 100% biodegradable and some of them are not. So when you're shopping around for products, just know that there may be some plastic involved in mushroom leather. There may not be. So that's that.
There are also a couple of notable quote-unquote fruit leathers, I'm going to call them. I think Pinatex, which is pineapple leather, and then also this apple leather I've been hearing about. Essentially, these are made from the cast-off of industrial fruit production. So like apple peels and pineapple peels and all that kind of stuff. And essentially these are dried out, powdered, and then mixed with resin. So it's half fruit-based powder and half resin. Now, what is resin? Resin is most likely in this manufacturing process PVA, or polyvinyl acetate. You might know this as Elmer's glue. It is also a petroleum-based plastic. So this is half plastic, meaning that it is not biodegradable, and it is also subject to the oil industry, which we'll get into. It's also currently not recyclable and also is not currently a large share of the market either.
Now, just a quick note on this section. So I also found a product, Cactus leather. This is made out of cactuses with the fibers and then essentially regenerated into what they called a bioresin. There is some polyurethane in there as well, some plastic. So that is also not 100% biodegradable, so it does fit into this category. But also, I'd just like to note that with these new materials, because they are proprietary, we don't really know what's in them. We don't really know the percentages. We kind of just know what they're telling us. There haven't been any sort of industrial scientific testing on these in the long run. So just take that as you will. I'm being quite vague in this video because all of the product information I was finding was quite vague about the actual formulations of these products. Time will tell.
However, the majority of the market share of these quote-unquote vegan leathers are made of two different types of plastics. Well, kind of three. So you've got polyurethane, or PU. This is my least favorite plastic of all time. I hate polyurethane. There's also PVC, polyvinyl chloride, and polyester, which is normally used as a substrate in this situation. So what normally happens in the production of these synthetic leathers is that a polyester woven fabric is made, and then the polyurethane or PVC or concoction thereof is laid out onto this substrate, and then it is bonded together with heat or chemicals or what have you. So you've sort of got striations, you've got that polyester layer, and then you've got that polyurethane or PVC layer. I think most people are aware of the sustainability concerns when it comes to synthetics and plastics. I think the number one sustainability concerns with plastics is that they do not biodegrade. Note that I didn't say they don't break down, because they do in many ways, but they do not biodegrade, meaning the polymer structures of the plastic will be around for thousands and thousands of years after you die. In landfills, in the ocean, broken down into microplastics, the list goes on, they're going to be around. So whatever we make out of these materials is going to follow this earth long after we are gone. Additionally, the oil industry is very polluting for our planet in many different ways. The burning of fossil fuels is one of the main reasons for the environmental catastrophe that we are currently in. Essentially, the burning of crude oil has released carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, which has created the greenhouse effect, which has gotten us into this predicament that we are in today. We do need to reduce our consumption of crude oil, and synthetic textiles, I think, are often left out of that conversation. But let's talk about why I specifically don't like polyurethane, my least favorite plastic. PVC is a close second. When I say they don't biodegrade, that means the chemical structure will be around forever, but that does not mean your garment will be around forever. Polyurethane and PVC are known in the conservation business as quote-unquote malignant plastics. Although that term is a little bit confounding, it basically means that they are still chemically active long after their manufacture. Consequently, they break down. Now, you might think of plastic as lasting forever, since chemically it does. It sticks around, it breaks down into microplastics, it gets into fish, it does all that stuff. But products made of plastics have a very short lifespan relative to their natural counterparts. Polyurethane, often after about 2 decades, I would say, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, depends on the environmental conditions, will embrittle and break down. This especially happens with polyurethane foam. If you've ever had like an old couch, like your grandma's old couch that had that cushions, they become crunchy, they become powdery, they start powdering. That is polyurethane. The same thing sort of happens to polyurethane in the leather-like conditions. It gets brittle, it breaks, it powders, it gets gross. It also, very specifically, this is a very specific thing to fake leathers, starts to unbond itself from that polyester substrate and flakes off.
It's important to note here too that this happens with a lot of other bonded structures. So this could potentially happen with the plant-based leathers that we talked about previously, but it also happens with a product called bonded leather, sometimes called regenerated leather, which is leather powder mixed with polyurethane bonded to a substrate as well. So watch out for those things.
Which is a problem because that creates microplastics. The powdering also creates microplastics as well, but it also creates a product where you will have just patches of the leather looking texture just completely missing, especially on things like handbags where there's a lot of high use areas, handles, straps, openings, all that jazz. PVC, on the other hand, is real gross. You might think of PVC polyvinyl chloride piping, and that's very rigid. So in order to get it to a soft, malleable place to wear, say in like a raincoat, they put in substances that are called plasticizers. Plasticizers are sort of wedged in the polymer structure, and they have a tendency to leach out. So if you've ever had a PVC raincoat, or the example I'm thinking of is Safiya Nygaard a while ago, and I'll link the video, did a video on these PVC like knee window pants, and I think she also did one on like completely PVC pants, and they started clouding. Now that clouding is actually most likely from plasticizer leaching out of the structure. Sometimes you'll also see older PVC garments have like actual drips and drops. They actually drip plasticizer out of them. So these garments are only going to last a specific amount of time, just not through wear, but just specifically because of the chemicals they are made out of. 2 decades normally, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less.
So we've been working with a lot of plastic garments at work lately. The stuff from the 60s seems to be doing like kind of okay, but we've been looking at a lot of garments from the early thousands, and those are not doing okay. So it really depends on the formulation. I'd say 15 years is pretty on the money, maybe even shorter.
I don't know. No one's really done like a comprehensive study on these things, seeing how long they last, because this is material that's only been around since the 1960s and honestly hasn't changed a whole lot since the 1960s. And we are just sort of, in the conservation field at least, getting into the lifespan of these products. Additionally, you might be thinking, well, Maggie, plastics can be recycled. And to that I say, yes, they can be recycled, but not often when they are garments.
While I was editing this video, there was a new Greenpeace study that came out that basically said plastics do not meet the criteria of being recyclable, and our production is just getting faster, so there's that as well. The article's linked down below if you want a really depressing read.
So a lot of the times companies will say, well, we have these vegan products and they're made from recycled materials. And that's fabulous. I love people using recycled materials to make new products. It's a great way of reducing our environmental impact, of course. However, that doesn't take into consideration the garment they are making probably can't be recycled. When things like plastic water bottles or milk jugs are recycled, they are easy to recycle because they are made of one type of component, normally polyester, polypropylene, etc., that is made uniformly in large batches, right? They're all the same color, they're all the same formula. It's easy to recycle those, relatively speaking. We don't actually recycle most of it, but relatively speaking. When you have a garment, you often have multiple different types of materials. You might have a polyurethane coating on a polyester substrate with a rayon lining and metal zippers and buttons and all this jazz. It is not going to be economical to disassemble that and then recycle the raw materials. There's also the difference in coloration and the difference in formulation in these garments. So these garments are not in any way recyclable. Now, you might be thinking reusable. Well, technically speaking, they are. But we've already discussed their shorter lifespans, and quote-unquote vegan leather products, synthetic products, do not hold as much value as their natural counterparts, even in today's market. They're going to have less resale power because they just aren't as quote-unquote desirable. Maybe they are becoming more desirable. There is also this idea that the resale market, although it has grown over the years, isn't necessarily decreasing our environmental impact. We're still buying more clothes than ever, even if we are buying some of them from the resale cycle, and it's just sort of creating this larger churn. So I think it's important to sort of step back and think of our relationship with the resale market and maybe rethink the way that it is transforming how we buy clothes. I don't think it's necessarily like our savior. It's great. I love the resale market. Don't get me wrong. Definitely resell your clothes, but we need to think of it as not the only way of reducing our impact. Granted, that's just a few of the reasons why I don't think synthetic leathers are environmentally sustainable. With all that being said, I don't want to come off as like leather being better necessarily. In my personal opinion, I would buy a real leather object over a synthetic leather object, but leather does have a lot of environmental concerns and ethical concerns if you are in fact vegan. An animal does have to die. That is something that has to happen for leather to be produced. You also have to feed, water, house, grow that entire animal, which has a negative effect on the environment oftentimes. Agriculture is specifically bovine agriculture is one of the reasons that the rainforest is being cut down, and many other landscapes are being destroyed because cows take a lot of space. The tanning process of leathers can also be highly toxic for both the workers and the environment surrounding it. Although there is ways to reduce that impact, vegetable tanning versus chrome tanning, all that jazz, it still is going to have a negative environmental impact. And that's not even to say producing the clothes and shipping the leather goods all around. Again, that is all impactful on the environment. So producing both of these things is going to cause negative environmental impacts. That's how consumption works. There is no such thing as free lunch. There is no such thing as ethical consumption. Oftentimes, I think that in this conversation of sustainability within clothing, we oftentimes focus on production a little bit too much. So there is an index called the Higg Index, which is put out by the SCA, which stands for the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and that index rates synthetic products like these quote-unquote vegan leathers and also polyester and such over their natural counterparts, saying they are more sustainable. Now you have to remember, this SCA is made up of literally different companies from the industry, and so is not necessarily a neutral third party in this entire situation. There's a New York Times article, I'll link that down below if you want to know more. I did want to throw that in there just because that is sort of part of this conversation and thinking about, is there a way to quantify this? Yes, there is. It's very heated. And it probably is true that synthetic materials take less resources to produce. However, that doesn't mean that they're more sustainable. A leather garment is going to last you longer. We have, as a person who sees a lot of older garments through their work, who treats a lot of older garments, who studies the way materials act over time, I can very confidently say that a leather garment, if you take care of it, can last you a significant portion of time, potentially your entire life, if it's like a jacket or a bag or something, if you repair it and take care of it. Doesn't mean it's going to last forever. It still is going to break down, but it is something that you are going to have far longer than its synthetic counterparts. It's also going to break down. It is going to go back into the earth and not going to be sort of a long-term burden on our planet. Additionally, we are currently in a space where we are producing more meat than we are using leather. Therefore, if you do eat meat, you should probably be wearing leather as part of using the entire animal. People are literally throwing hides away because there is not enough demand for leather, even though beef demand is at an all-time high. So that is why I will continue buying leather products. Of course, this is not about your own choices. If you are vegan and that is important to you, buying synthetic leather might be part of your practice, and that's completely fine. Synthetics are unavoidable in our current landscape. They just are. Like, the top I'm wearing right now is partially synthetic. Like, personally, activewear is one of those things that I think synthetics have revolutionized in terms of being able to create stretchy but breathable garments. Like, synthetics are great in many ways. However, the problem I have with the garment industry currently is this idea that you can moralize these synthetic materials, calling them vegan or sustainable, when in fact it's much, much more complicated than that. They're using a term that has long been linked with environmentalism to sort of sell you these same synthetic products, low quality products, often at a higher price point, and moralize them with this veneer of eco-friendliness and sustainability. It's textbook greenwashing. But no company is truly going to ever market sustainability because sustainability is not something that can be marketed. The best way to reduce your carbon footprint with your wardrobe is to simply buy less, use what you have for longer, and repair when you need to. Some choices are better than others, but that doesn't mean that you can really market sustainability. Consumption is the root of the problem, and you can't market away from consumption. Those two things are antithetical to each other. So again, if you are vegan, or even if you're not vegan and you just want to be more sustainable, here are the things that are really going to help the environment. Number one, buy less. Use it longer, repair it. That's basically the number one thing. Number two, buy secondhand things when you can. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance within that, and we're not going to go into that right now, but that is a great way of doing things. Number three is, of course, when you do have to inevitably go out and get something, or even if shopping is just a way that suits your soul, the important thing is to buy things that you're going to wear. Buy things that you love. Buy things that are good quality, the best quality you can afford, that fit you, that just vibe with you, that you are going to use. Because if you have a wardrobe full of things that you love and that you're going to use and that you're going to repair, that's a great way of becoming more sustainable. There are also both fibers that are vegan and natural, cotton, wool, hemp, etc., that are great options. Again, there's sustainability concerns with those as well, but if you're vegan and you want to have more natural products, those are options for you. And of course, keep an eye out for any other plant-based leathers and drop them down in the comments if I missed any. I'm always interested in new research and new products coming out because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the space right now. So hopefully this discussion around vegan leather and sort of the war that is playing on between veganism and environmentalism and sustainability and marketing sort of got you thinking a little bit more about the materials in our world and that you wear and consume on an everyday basis. And hopefully this video has given you information to make the choices that are best for you. So if you have any questions or comments, of course, pop them down below. I will be in and out of the comment section. And if you are interested in following me, you can of course subscribe here. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram at Costume and Conservation. Give the video a like if you indeed liked it. Otherwise, I will see you in another video. Bye!